something that always comes to mind is when we were walking by the most expensive home on the planet in Mumbai, and I was filming it on my phone, and one of the security guards came out and was like, hand me your phone, you got to delete all those videos. And you were just like, we don't have to do that. We know our rights. And I was like, dude, we do not know our rights in India.
I can't remember if I hit him with the we know our rights, but I think I was saying like, dude,
you ever heard of the First
a video
Amendment,
on a
bud?
public street. Like, how can there be anything illegal about this? Which, you know, is what I tried to tell Hezbollah some weeks later, too, and didn't fly with them either. So,
Hey, how are you? Welcome back to Drop a Pin. Today we have Sam, the Stoolie, who joined me in Turkey for Baldstool, joined me in India, and joined this pod before on the Lebanon episode, where he talked about how he was detained by Hezbollah twice. But now we got him in the studio because he came to Chicago for the Baldstool reunion, and I am pumped because I think this might be the one dude who knows more weird, random historical facts than me.
well, thank you.
And we also have White Sox Dave.
Oh yeah, and White Sox Dave just asked if he could sit in. He might chime
but
in.
there's a specific reason for it. So in the few months that I've known Sam, the 8 months now that I've known Sam, he's one of the weirdest brains on earth, and I gravitate towards weird brains, and I just want to hear him talk about all the shit he's done. So that's why I wanted to be on this show.
So
I'm not
As
gonna
opposed
add
to just
anything.
listening to the podcast.
But that's asking way too much. That's asking way too much.
That
You know
is, it is, yeah.
White Sox Dave, there's the character at Barstool, White Sox Dave. But when I met him in Istanbul, the first night we had dinner, we were sat next to each other. And within like 20 minutes, he and I are just talking about the Battle of the Bulge and Band of Brothers and visiting all these, you know, battlefield sites in Northern Europe. And I realized really quickly that, you know, Dave is interested in history, knows a lot about history.
Yeah.
We bailed on going to the nightclub with the rest of the Baldstool guys the other night. We went over to Dave's apartment, and he sits down, packs a bowl, and says, all right, I want to talk about war.
I fucking love
That's
it.
it. That's
We've
what we
talked
did.
war for like 2
David,
years.
You could have called me in that situation, see if I wanted to come over.
We'll do it. We'll make that happen. Well, we're gonna do that.
But
for,
I thought one of the
high
reasons you
history.
started this pod is because you were like, okay, I'd rather not talk about war.
That's probably true. I probably said no.
But it's different now. You can, I think, you've kind of rebranded yourself enough at this point where you can just go and give it the Chaps perspective without the Army perspective. I think.
Well,
It's
I'd
more
give
the,
a Marine one, yeah. But
You
And
know?
it's also like there is the overlap between like geography, history, travel,
Yes.
war. Like those intersect and overlap.
for
a lot,
sure.
Totally.
so-
Yeah.
Totally.
Turns out we've done a lot of war in human history.
a lot of it.
Yeah. We love war. All right. Well, thanks for coming, Sam. We appreciate it, man. I'm excited to talk to you, too. I think some of the most positive comments that we got on this show so far, outside of like Barstool people, Sam has been a super favorite.
Yeah, for sure. That was like Lebanon just has such a fascinating history, and like you were able to kind of like talk about how you were detained, but also drop a lot of like solid history nuggets too. We should quickly just plug, like I'm dropping the vlogs that we filmed in India right now, so check those out. Sam was right by my side throughout that entire week to 10 days, and you were fresh off a hair transplant.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. Definitely the most chaotic place I've ever visited. I think you said that, you know, having been to what? Tajikistan, Baghdad, Cairo, like, India takes it up another level.
Baghdad was like
Chaos.
a walk in the park compared to the Sunday markets in Delhi.
And I think the final video you're dropping is this kabaddi, this ancient Indian sport we went to go witness that has like, its origins are back, beyond 1000 BC. There's, you know, like carvings of people playing this game.
Yeah.
Is that the slap game?
Not this. It's kind of like tag. They're actually going to they want to try to grow it in the U.S., so they're rebranding as battle tag.
Actual battle tag exists, and that shit's crazy as hell. Have you ever seen that? Extreme tag?
I get hit with
I've
those on
not.
like algorithms on.
It is insane how they
They have like the
fly
obstacle
through.
courses and shit, right? Yeah.
This is kind of like
But in the Olympics would be
It's kind of
sick.
like Red Rover tag.
Oh.
So like it's like 5-on-5,
7-on-7.
7-on-7, and you send one raider, like an attacker, over onto the other side. The court's split, you know, like a tennis court, and the 7 defenders, the attacker's trying to tag the defenders, and as soon as he touches one of them, they can gang tackle him to the ground and try to prevent him from getting back to his side. if he touches 2 guides and gets back to his side cleanly, those 2 guys have to step off, and now you're down to 5 defenders.
I'm super into this.
I'm
game.
into
It's
it right now.
It's hard hitting. It takes agility. Donnie was saying KB would be great at this game.
KB would be good
KB
at
is also as well as NFL cornerbacks.
Yes, like Deion Sanders could have been the greatest kabaddi player of all time.
Tyreek Hill.
Although there is a rule, you can't weigh over 180 pounds if you want to play professional kabaddi.
No fats allowed. I love that shit too.
So, I mean, I'm over 180. Dave, you're a pretty solid
I'm 180.
guy. Oh, you're exactly 180?
I was 183 this morning after the Baldstool weekend, but I'm about 180 is where I should be.
I'm 205. Holden Lady May. I'm 211.
All right. Well,
210 and a
we
half.
could
She's 5.5
shave
pounds.
20 pounds.
I think
Yeah.
if I went and took a dump, I might be the only guy who's allowed to play.
Nice.
I think I should be 180. I think the fact that I'm 210, I technically qualify as obese.
I'm obese technically.
Yeah, pretty much like every American is
Yeah.
obese, except for Chris Clemmer, who's like
Who's that?
malnourished.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the last vid that is dropping. But yeah, thanks for accompanying me on that trip. I can't believe I was planning on just doing it solo. That would not have been as enjoyable.
As I think I said in our first pod, India is definitely best for the buddy system.
Yeah.
Not a place I'd want to go solo for the first time. So,
Yes.
Yeah, worked
And we
out.
did. Sam was freaking out because during one of the live streams, some people invited us to smoke some local weed in the largest slum on earth, Dharavi. And like after we smoked it, everybody in like the live stream chat is just like messaging, "Oh, Sam, you're so fucked. Like, the cops are coming." I don't know. And like Sam was having a minor panic attack.
What happened, and I don't know, I've smoked all over the world. I like to think I have a somewhat high weed tolerance. But I was monitoring the live chat. You were just hanging out with these guys. We're in the back alley of the largest slum in the world. This was before we'd smoked. Or you know what? We'd smoked with the first group of guys, and we'd run into a second group of guys. And I'm waiting for this joint to get rolled. 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, turned into 15, and Donnie's already paid them. And you weren't looking at the live chat. I was monitoring the live chat. And they're convinced that you and I are in imminent danger. We're all about to be robbed. And I just let the live chat convince me that, like, oh, we're about to get killed right here.
I feel like that's a pretty common thing with Donnie's streams is people think that we're going to get killed. Like when we were coming back from Mexico City in a high tourist area that was extremely safe, people were nervous about me.
Yeah, you were like, "I'm going to walk home."
Yeah.
And so you just walked home alone. It was like a 10, 15-minute walk.
Yeah, and they were like, he's going to get so... I'm like, dude, I can handle myself.
Yes.
Like, I'll be okay.
And I think that I'm sure they have the best intentions, most of them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, most places you go in the world are not as dangerous as they may appear to, a person on a screen
Yes.
thousands of miles away.
When we went to the Dominican and went to those slums, like I had the stigma, same thing. Like we may get robbed or kidnapped or sold
Well,
into
and
a
that
section,
was
and they were
legitimately
so
dangerous.
well. No,
Yeah.
yes and no. If you just dropped me there and I was an alien, I don't know that I would have felt unsafe. They were so welcoming to us.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one case where we did pay protection money.
Yes, we did.
We had like a guide. If we had
10,000
just like
pesos.
walked in there, I don't think someone would have like stabbed us or killed us, but I think someone would have kind of like
Pickpocket or
taken our camera. Or,
Yeah, maybe something like that.
pickpocketed.
How do you think Big T would handle Dominican baseball? Because I think Donnie taking Big T and Arian down there, same event he took you to, would be hilarious.
He would be more of a fish out of water. I think that I am, and I could be wrong. I don't know T this well, and you could probably speak to this better than I could. But I like to think that, especially when abroad, I'll just like jump into any situation.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's Big T, and
No.
especially in a weird world where there's no English being spoken. I don't know that he would have the fun that I did. However, if you're a baseball fan like him, it's like the most fun I've ever had. So maybe he could find it.
Yeah.
Maybe start him in Japanese baseball.
I think that'd be
Is there
probably a
any
little better.
yard houses in the Dominican Republic that he could go to?
What's
No.
The Yard House beer spot.
Oh, like the
Like-
chain.
Yeah, that's his favorite
Big
restaurant.
T's happy place.
Do they
Yeah.
sell
You can be
Angry
in-
Orchards at the Dominican baseball games?
Oh, yeah,
It's just
no, I
El
did not see any
Presidente
Angry
as far
Orchards.
as the eye can see.
Some Hornsby's.
One thing that I always think back to that Dominican game is that there was like a 7-year-old boy just selling
Yes.
bottles of booze. And at the time, I didn't know this. I think he was deaf. So I was like, I'll take a bottle of booze. And he's just like, and he like squeaks. He can't like speak. And I was like, oh, this dude speaks and like squeaks. And I say it in the
sounded
video.
kind of like Dave's voice on Miss Peaches.
Yeah, he was like, and I at the time I didn't, and then like I posted the clip and I was like, oh, did I just make fun of like a deaf boy? I felt a little bad about that, but I don't think
That's
he
the
cared.
kid that got me sick too. I'm pretty sure, because he was.
Let's not. Well, let's not put that on the deaf boy.
I think because I asked him for yellow ice, and not thinking that there might be pathogens in the ice as well. And I was drinking rum straight. I'm like, if I'm gonna be drinking straight rum, I want it cold. So I got yellow from him, and 12 hours later, I was in the hospital with Donnie.
That was my first. My daughter, my older kid, is in Mexico for the first time, like leaving the country by herself, and my only piece of advice was just remember ice is also water.
Yes.
And she was like, I didn't even think about that. Like, it's water still. And lettuce.
That's the
Watch
I
out
was
for
looking
ice
out
and
for that
lettuce.
one. You thought it was the dip though that I bought. I think it was the ice.
He did buy, like, he was looking for chewing tobacco in the DR, and he bought this, and it was like, it looks like it was in this just like reusable plastic bag.
Yes.
Some guy just like threw some little
Tobacco.
tidbits
So that's
in.
like the best clip of the video. He just got on the back of a motorcycle with some guy to go look for dip.
I paid him.
And then he pulls back up on the motorcycle and got the dip.
See, Big T's not doing that.
No, that's exactly it. I just hitchhiked to a local grocery store. It's like a Walmart, like their version of it. Bought the dip, gave him $10 cash or whatever, and that was it.
Would you use Dave as a Spanish translator again?
I mean,
I got his buy.
Yeah.
enough.
I remember at like one point, it's like, you're like, yo, tiene hambre. And I was like, oh, you're hungry? And Dave's like, oh, no, shit, I meant thirsty.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of, those are the basics. I do think,
In your face, Dave.
I think Dave, I think you probably knew more than me, but it was like marginally more.
No,
But-
it was not marginally more. I can conjugate verbs and stuff. The noun, like for
You think I can't conjugate a verb,
so
bro?
that's
Oh,
like
we're
those are
we're
what
about to
I
have
have
a verb
forgotten.
off.
Like a lot of just nouns you forget. The conjugation you don't forget. Like thirsty. Like
Okay.
if you told me what thirsty is right now, it would take a while for me to forget it again. But I think I told you this, but I last week I haven't started yet. I got Duolingo because I actually want to be fluent.
Premium or regular?
Again. Yeah.
Premium. Mm-hmm. Wow, you're rich.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, today we were thinking of talking some Greece because you recently spent a full month out there.
I think I was in Greece for over a month, yeah. I think Lebanon was the only country I technically spent longer in.
I'm very excited to learn about Greece because I have never been. And when I think of Greece, I think of like Santorini, Mykonos, Athens, and where they have the Parthenon. Is that what it's called? Or
The Acropolis. Yeah.
And those places, you just like overrun with British tourists, very expensive, very like fancy resorts. But Greece is huge. And I've heard that like you go to some of the other islands, it's actually pretty cheap and like equally as beautiful.
Yeah, so I was on the island of Crete for a few weeks, like the western part of Crete, and it's at least a few hours ferry from Athens. But I mean, it's a big enough island. You know, it probably takes 3 or 4 hours to drive, maybe even longer, to drive from one end of Crete to the other. So it has a really, unique feel to it. It was a very interesting history where it hasn't always technically been, politically connected to Athens or mainland Greece. It was like, I think the Ottoman period there lasted longer than on the mainland.
And do you know who controlled it before the Ottomans?
Maybe the Venetians for a period.
Yeah, I think it was part of the
Yeah.
Phoenician Empire.
I mean,
at one
it's
point.
changed hands so many times, and Crete is like where and now I'm gonna get this, where the Minoan Greeks are from. You got the Mycenaeans on the mainland, Minoans on Crete, but that's like the Minotaur and the labyrinth. That myth is all from Crete. Like I might have mentioned this in the Lebanon episode, but the word Europe is like Europa. Europa was a Phoenician princess from the city of either Byblos or Tyre, one of those ancient Phoenician cities in Lebanon I visited. And according to like Greek mythology, Zeus took the form of a bull, kidnapped the princess Europa from Phoenicia, Lebanon, and then kidnapped her back to Crete, where she ended up, they conceived a son, Zeus and Europa. Their son was King Minos, which is, again, part of that Minotaur myth. And Europa also has this meaning where, like, in Phoenician, it meant something like where the sun sets. So essentially, Europe becomes Europa. It means, like, the lands to the west. But it also has this connection with, this Phoenician princess who became the mother of the kings of Crete. And the Minoans, they had... But there's linear A and linear B, which are like undeciphered. One of them's still undeciphered, like an ancient script. So they had a writing, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. They had a writing system, an alphabet system that I believe we still have not deciphered to this day. And, the Minoan civilization is kind of like what you could today consider Europe. It's like the oldest civilization. At least that had left recorded history.
Isn't that the alphabet and the writing samples one of the only ones that we've recovered that's older than Sanskrit?
Probably, yeah. Because I think I can touch on this in my high history, but yeah, Sanskrit would have made it to India definitely later than Linear B was being developed, or Linear. I always get them mixed up. It's one of the two, Linear A or Linear B.
Bonus points for you. What Bible book is set in Crete?
You're going to stump me on this one. I've been meaning to do a deep dive. I was one of the people, I got confirmed at 13, and I was like, all right, I'm leaving Christianity in the dust now. But I've been meaning to do a deep dive on all of the books of the Old Testament and trying to figure out, what period this was actually written in and what information they were trying to encode in here. And so I don't know.
The answer is the Epistle to Titus. The Apostle Paul took Titus to Crete in order to be like the leader of that church, and he wrote to Titus at like what to do there as like the lead pastor or reverend or whatever the fuck they called it, and that's where that book comes. It's the instruction to the people in Crete.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think I got to see where St. Paul shipwrecked off the coast of Malta. Got like an island right there, and there's a giant cross there now where he shipwrecked, and that's all like recorded in the Bible.
Cool.
Have you ever been to any of those old? I know you were like in seminary at one point, right? Have you ever been to any of the really old kind of ancient church sites in Turkey or Greece or?
Not that haven't been like bombed out.
Okay.
I mean, some in Iraq we went to, like the old ancient Babylon, like the Babylonian gardens, which is pretty close to Fallujah.
Right.
Like that was one thing that I was shocked when I went to Fallujah, was the amount of like palm trees and stuff.
Yeah.
How different it is there, because you're like, how could the Garden of Eden be around this place? And you're like, oh.
Yeah,
They
it was
call
also
the Fertile Crescent for a
Yeah.
reason.
the Middle East
exactly
used to
right,
be
yeah.
like way more green
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Sahara, even
years ago.
500 years ago, had forests in it.
I think
The
it was
Sahara-
like 5,000.
5,000.
5,000 years ago, yeah.
And they're changing. I think is it the Gobi that they have planted reeds all over it on one side, on the eastern side, where
To like stop the advancement.
Yeah, to stop the advancement. And there's also green recovery, because it doesn't allow the winds to go back. These reeds are essentially acting as a windbreak, and it's causing, like, trees are popping up in the desert, grasses are popping up in the desert, and they think that it could end up changing the entire landscape, and like microevolution of the ecology there can change based on just planting dried out reeds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Now, was the Minoan civilization the one that got, they think, like a giant earthquake and tsunami like wiped out at least like one of the major cities?
They do think that like the collapse of Minoan civilization might have in part been caused by, was it Santorini that exploded? I mean, there was a massive volcano explosion, I don't know, 1500 BC. I'm not exactly accurate on
Santorini,
that.
yep.
So yeah, Santorini exploded, and Crete was in close enough proximity to there that, for whatever reason, crop failures, tsunamis, who knows what, but they started to go on the decline. But I think there is evidence now, too, that they were invaded, probably by the Mycenaeans or the people that sometimes get called the Sea Peoples in like Egyptian history.
That would be a good high history topic. But yeah.
Might touch on that in my high history.
Love
But
Have you guys ever heard of the Sea Peoples?
No.
I know that there's still some sea people, but it's not in the same
No,
area.
yeah, these were an ancient sea people that like all of the ancient civilizations around during the Bronze Age, like the Egyptian, there was whoever was in
Assyrians,
the Assyrians,
the Hittites,
Minoans, they all reported at the same time being invaded by sea people, and they still to this day don't exactly know where they came from, and those mass invasions just like led to the downfall of all of the civilizations. Like it led to kind of just like social unrest, civil
what
unrest.
they call the late Bronze Age collapse.
Yeah.
Where like, before roughly 1200 BC, you have all these stable empires in that region, Egypt, Assyria, the Hittites, the Minoans, and then by 1100 BC, like all of that stuff has collapsed, been replaced, population turnover, cities destroyed. So yeah, when we don't know exactly what happened, I think they think maybe they were from like Malta or Sicily, somewhere more western in the Mediterranean. These sea peoples, like there's words like Sicel or something, which we may think might be related to the word Sicily. And they also think like there was this Egyptian word Peliset or Pelis. I'm probably butchering this, but a word that started with a P that essentially meant invaders by sea. And that word over time is the word that became Palestinian. So there is a very interesting connection there too.
Yeah. So they were kind of like the ancient Viking invasions, like how like
Exactly.
Vikings
Yeah.
ran train on Europe. The sea people ran train on all these like ancient
Sounds
Mediterranean civilizations way back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Yeah.
But modern Crete in 2025, 3,000 years later, it's a pretty interesting spot where it's like definitely just island life, slower, little sleepier than on the mainland. But they have two big cities, Hania and Heraklion, which probably each have 100,000 people. A lot of U.S. Navy guys there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we have a couple big ports on
Sure they
Crete.
do.
So when I was walking around Hania, you could tell pretty easily with, the big lips of dip and the crew cuts who was there off a Navy boat.
That's why I fucking hate the Navy and the Air Force. They have so much better like base locations. I mean, going to Crete or going to fucking 29 Palms, California, bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the Navy that has a big base in the Philippines? Because all my friends were like,
Yeah.
if you go to the base, it's like the biggest massing of prostitutes because they're all just there to make money off of
If you go
the
to
Navy dudes.
any Navy base, I would bet a quarter of the wives are Filipino. Like, it's crazy how many Navy people are from the Philippines.
Okay.
Like even service members, because they can sign up for the U.S. Navy there to get a faster track to citizenship.
Okay.
And so they do that, and then they come over, and the Navy's culture in the Philippines is so strong.
So you can just be a Filipino guy and just join the U.S. Navy?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the Gurkhas almost, like the
Yeah.
Nepalese guys in the British
Yeah,
Army.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
Yep. Like there's a few other countries that you could do it too. Like at Lackland, they have the Defense Language Institute, where if you are a foreign national and you apply to become a military member here, you have to like pass higher score testing and all that. But they bring you even if you don't speak English, and they'll teach you English at the Defense Language Institute.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, like Puerto Rico, they send people there all the time. Like a lot of their troops that are going to go follow on training here, they go to the Defense Language Institute
So
first.
are there some Marines that like, not every Navy ship has a contingent of Marines on it, right? Like, but
there'll
above
be-
a certain size, there's some group of
Yes,
Marines that luck out and get to go to these nice places with the Navy.
Yeah, those are called MEUs. Yeah, so you have Marine Expeditionary Units that are put on Navy boats, and you also have Marines on boats. Not all, but for like security reasons.
So is that a pretty coveted Marine gig to get to go?
Yeah, people love going on MEUs because like you can go either hemisphere. So the Asian tour is awesome. Like you're gonna go to like usually South Korea, you're definitely gonna go to Okinawa, you're definitely gonna go to Guam, you're definitely gonna go to Australia. You might stop over in Indonesia. Like you get to travel a ton. And my travel was primarily done like presidential security and like Secretary of State security. and shit like that. So once I got to a place, I didn't really get to go explore a lot. People on Muse, they do. Like, they'll get a lot of liberty time, 3 or 4 days where they can go kind of explore and check it out. So those are, I wish I would have got to do that, but I didn't feel like I should go to war and then leave for another 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of that study abroad program called Semester at Sea?
My sister did it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, you take you get a full semester's worth of college credits, but you're just on a giant boat and it goes around the entire world.
I think they stopped. She stopped in Europe. They stopped in Ghana.
You stop in Shanghai.
They were in Buenos Aires. They were either in Australia or New Zealand. Yeah, somewhere in Asia.
On what, like a cargo ship or some shit?
It's like a cruise ship, basically.
Yeah, it's
That's
kinda just like a
fucking
cruise.
awesome.
My friend's younger brother was on it, though, and so they stopped in Vietnam, and then their next stop was Shanghai. And on the trip from Vietnam to Shanghai, one of the guys on it just didn't wake up. They found him dead.
Never mind.
They
No,
found
you
him.
can laugh.
Poorly timed
They
blast.
found
And what didn't happen in America, you can laugh.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was the other way around.
And they think, like, while
Didn't
that
happen.
person was
Oh,
partying
okay.
in Vietnam, they may have done some drugs or whatever that,
Yikes! Some
Yaba?
yeah, some yaba.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
isn't that what you did over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize till I was in Greece that, like, Greece is just kind of the Amsterdam of the Southeast Mediterranean. Weed's just legal there, or at least it appeared to be. There were
I
dispensaries.
don't think so. I think Germany is the only part of the European Union that.
I had no
legal.
idea about this. I was buying marijuana from dispensaries in Crete that were, just big storefronts right on the busy tourist strips.
I wonder if it's like New York, where it's technically.
Oh, they sell that fake weed? Well, now it's legal in New York, but they used to have those fake weed stores.
Well, there is some sort of loophole where it's like not technically,
Hemp derived.
It's TCHA or something.
It's
Delta.
It's hemp derived.
Yeah.
Like
I got
Delta
very
8.
high
Yeah.
and I fell asleep in the middle of Gladiator 2 and missed the whole thing in a movie theater.
I did that
I was
exact
way
same
too
thing,
high.
and I went back and watched what I missed after I fell asleep in the theater, and you didn't miss anything.
So what did you go to Crete for this time?
So I had been in Athens for like a week or so. I'd come down to Athens from Bulgaria. I'd been in Bulgaria and Serbia. I was in Athens on election night, actually. I was like, I'm not going to pay attention to this. I'm just going to go to bed. They won't know in Greece till, 5 a.m. Athens time. Of course, I just stayed up all night
Yeah.
refreshing Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
But I spent like a week in Athens. Great city. People like I
People like
heard
to
a
shit
lot
on
of
it.
people like to shit on Athens, and maybe if you're into more of a kind of luxury relaxing vacation, then it's not the spot. But if you're just like a history nerd, Athens is as cool as Rome in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. Went to like some Greek league basketball games, which were super fun.
Yeah.
Those
And
games
then-
look insane.
Yeah, and there was like one of Giannis's brothers was playing.
See, I was gonna make a joke. Do they have any of the Giannis's brother? Like
one of the
Atenta
Kumpo bros
yeah.
was there, and there was half a dozen guys who names I was familiar with from what's his name, Juancho Hernan Gomez, the guy who was in that Adam Sandler movie a
Yep.
couple years ago.
Rick Pitino used to coach their main club.
Did he?
Athens
When he was
Olympiacos.
suspended or
So
some
I
shit.
went to a
Maybe.
I went to the one that has the 4-leaf clover, Panathinaikos.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think their biggest rival is who I went to go see play.
Yeah. I think that's on my bucket list of sporting events I want to go to when like Olympiacos plays Panathinaikos.
Yes,
'cause
the big Athens
I've seen
derby.
flares at like outdoor soccer games. They'll just
Yeah.
set off flares inside a basketball stadium.
Right, and this was like a non-EuroLeague match. They were kind of taking this as just a scrimmage almost. They were dominating this other Greek team. So it wasn't like sold out, but there were just people sitting inside this arena smoking cigarettes, passing joints.
That seems so sick.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Dominique Wilkins.
so
Yeah,
sick.
not sick for the basketball players though. You're just breathing in smoke.
Inhaling.
No.
Yeah.
Dominique Wilkins played for them for at least a year or two.
Really?
At the tail end of his career. I mean, he's still like, they've got his photo, his jersey everywhere. But that was fun. I spent some time in Athens. If you're there in Athens, between October and April, it's either the first or the last Sunday of every month. You'll have to go Google it yourself. But every state-owned museum and historical attraction is just free. So I showed up there on a Sunday and probably got like I don't know, $150 in admissions fees between 6 or 7 museums and tourist sites. So yeah, if you're going to be in Athens, look out for that.
That's awesome. I bet the museums in there, like, they had crazy shit.
Yeah, the big archaeological museum there was as good as anything else in the world. Just like
standing there, and for a guy like you too, just standing there reading the plaques, you're probably boned up the whole time.
Yes, it was pretty awesome. This is kind of an aside here, but I have this tattoo of Herodotus and Thucydides, who are like ancient Greeks, collectively known as like the fathers of history. And the tattoo is actually a real marble bust of them, where both of their heads are kind of fused at the back and they're looking in opposite directions. And I just assumed that this bust would be in one of those museums in Athens. And I was like, oh, when I get to Athens, I'll do some research and I'll find out where I can go see this thing.
Take my shirt off in the museum.
Yeah. When I was in Naples, I was walking around the big archaeological museum in Naples, and I just turned into a room, and there was that marble bust of my tattoo, Herodotus and Thucydides. I was like, holy shit, what? I ended up Googling it, and that was the only one in the world. Like, there is no one in Greece. If I'd gone to Athens and looked for it, I would have been shit out of luck. They think there were, like, used to be lots of copies of these, but they've only recovered one, and it's the one that they have in Naples.
Wow,
that I just, like, stumbled upon by chance.
That's very cool.
But yeah, I rented a car in Athens, which... Dude, Greek car rentals. I don't, European car rentals in general. I did maybe a 10-day car rental in France and then another week or so one in Greece. I wasn't ever paying more than like $20 a day.
It's the cheapest thing on earth. I loved it.
Do you have to pay more if you want an automatic transmission?
Yes, I did.
Slightly more, but dude, if you know how to drive stick, you could get a decent stick car for $9 a day. Like,
and driving sticks are fun.
Yeah, I was getting an automatic just for the ease of it. I wasn't trying to drive a stick in the middle of Athens or the middle of Paris.
Did they drive on the same side of the road as us?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That was a dumb American of me. First time I went to Europe, I ran a car. I'm like, fuck, I'm nervous. I'm going to have to be driving on the right hand or the left side of the road. And it's only the UK they do that.
Yeah, only the UK, and then obviously Australia, probably South Africa.
There's a couple other, but
Japan.
in Europe, it's all like us,
Japan.
other than the UK.
That first time you experience the other side of the road too, it is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You're like,
Dude,
whoa.
It's got to be so weird.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe, they don't do it? Like none of the British African countries?
Yeah,
do?
in Zimbabwe, they do it the same way as
and like Kenya,
the UK. Yeah. Now, why did Japan decide to go the British way?
I've wondered
And
that.
not
And I
the
don't know
Probably
if
because
I've
we
ever-
went on the other side, and they're just like, we got to do the opposite of this.
Yeah, but this was back before. This was way
definitely
before the atomic bombs. They weren't like fuck America. Yeah. Actually, they probably were like fuck America. It was an American guy that forced the Japanese to like open up to the rest of the world.
Right. Commodore Perry, right?
Commodore Perry. He just brought
Long time stool.
He brought
Yeah, big time.
He brought his giant gunboat into the harbor in like Osaka or somewhere in Japan, and was like, if you guys like don't start trading with foreign countries, I'm just going to open fire on the city.
Okay, here we go.
Finally, they were like, all right, we'll trade with you guys. God damn it.
The tradition of Japanese people driving on the right side of the road is rooted in the Edo period, where samurai, typically right-handed, wore their swords on their left side. Passing on the left allowed them to avoid their swords clashing, which could be seen as a provocation.
I actually heard that's why they did this in the UK because of
Knights and
chivalry.
shit.
knights. Yeah, because most people are right-handed, and they would hold their long ass fucking things when they were what's it called with the horses.
Lance?
A joust?
Jousting, yes. When they're
Lance.
jousting, that's
Yeah,
why
the lance, yeah.
once cars became a thing.
Violence decided what side of the road you go on. I love
Actually,
it.
Sounds
Chief
like it
told
was-
me that
it was
before, and I'm
actually, the custom was later adopted for railways and eventually became codified into law for vehicles.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
interesting. But no, they drive
Hidden culture.
on the
Yeah.
our side of the road in Greece, and I rented this car, and I probably did like a week just driving around Greece, mostly in the Peloponnese, which the Peloponnese is like, I don't know if you can picture Greece in your head. It's like the southern island where Sparta was. That part of Greece. I don't know. But first I drove up to Delphi, where the Oracle,
The
used to
Oracle,
be.
Delphi. Wow.
and
We could do a
there's-
whole podcast episode on that.
Yeah, and the Eleusinian Mysteries,
Yes.
which were actually at Eleusis, which is a little closer to Athens. But very interesting sites where, yeah, people used to go partake in these like
The
rituals and definitely some sort of psychedelic or intoxication process that occurred there that we're not entirely sure what it was. Maybe
Yeah.
involving like ergot or whatever.
Because after you did it, you weren't really allowed to talk about it, right? Or like
No, and people kept the lid on, especially the Eleusinian mysteries. Like people were very tight.
What do you mean?
About that?
Talk-
it was like a rite of passage for the elite in Greece. You would go to this town, and you go into like a cave for a day, or
Yeah, well, so the Oracle at Delphi was in a cave, and that
Yeah.
had to do with like some sort of noxious fumes that naturally actually come out of the earth there, they think, which might have put the Oracle into this hallucinating
Yeah.
trance or state, and they would come and give you information. But then the Eleusinian mysteries was slightly different, a little closer to Athens, and even like in the Roman period, like I think, don't quote me on this, but like Marcus Aurelius or powerful guys in Rome and Italy would travel all the way to Greece to become initiated in the Eleusinian rites, the Eleusinian mysteries. And it definitely involved drinking something, but they think now that like there was a recipe, a concoction. It was a pretty psychedelic brew from what people have gathered or reconstructed.
Yeah.
And then, as kind of Christianity rose, things got very dogmatic, and like the mysteries were just kind of destroyed, persecuted, but also the people who were still doing them just took them so underground that whatever we could know about them was just kind of lost.
Yeah.
So
Christianity ruined a lot of good times.
A lot of history.
Clip that.
At least when it comes to doing drugs, because that's what they did. The same thing when they came to Mexico and they were using
Right.
like magic mushrooms and all their rituals, and they were like, no,
Yeah.
no, because they would call shrooms the flesh of the gods,
Right.
And they'd be like, no, you're gonna take the Eucharist, or what's that? The
Blood of
like,
Christ.
yeah,
the
like no.
Eucharist.
This is the flesh of the gods.
Right.
It's a little wafer, and it does
Well,
not get you high.
Of course, like there is that, from the 60s or the 70s, there's that famous book. I think the guy's name is John Marco Allegro. I don't know. Joe Rogan mentions him all the time. But he wrote that book called The Sacred Mushroom Cross, where he essentially says that early Christianity, Jesus and the disciples were just a bunch of people eating psychedelic mushrooms. And
Yes.
yeah,
I
and like-
did. I read up on that.
And again,
Sounds
don't
like-
quote me on this because
Yeah.
I myself am quoting Joe Rogan right now. But I think Rogan has said that, like, the Vatican bought up all the copies of these books in the 1970s, and it's really hard to get a copy of this
It
book
is.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be true.
But there is some like really ancient Christian art where you will see
Yes.
shrooms in it and like shroom
Yeah.
motifs.
Or like the burning bush, they think might have been kind of,
Hallucination or
yeah.
something.
Well, yeah. There's I
Ayahuasca.
can't remember exactly.
And that was the first time, I'm pretty sure, like it's been a long time since I read about this, but I'm pretty sure that that time period is when the theological branch of transubstantiation, where it actually transformed into the blood and like
Right.
flesh of Christ,
Right.
was done in order to meet that tradition. And then it kind of changed back to what's called consubstantiation. Consubstantiation. There it goes.
Which, like,
and that's like just a representation.
and those were like the biggest early arguments in the church, right? Like that's kind of what
That's
split
huge.
the
That-
church into
that
like
and baptism,
Right.
and the ability for lay people to be able to read.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of churches and Christianity, I don't know if Sam can pull it up. So I drove to this place called Meteora, Greece. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Meteor Greece. That's where they have those super steep mountains.
Yes.
And then there's monks that like live on top of the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, we should definitely bring up a photo of that for the pod. It
it's-
looks crazy.
It's kind of hard to believe it's even real when you see some of these photos. And there's a little like town at the base of these. I mean, they look like the Avatar Mountains. What's
Yeah.
the place in China where they
Yeah, I know
filmed
what you're
some of
talking
that?
Zhangjiajie or something. Yeah.
And some of them even have like bridges, spanning a drop of 100 feet or more. Yeah, you can pull up some pictures of this. But there's probably
Meteora.
half a
Yeah.
dozen monasteries or
Wow.
nunneries that you can hike up to. And you pay you make like a 5 or 10 euro donation fee to go into these. And, all of them claim to have like in some 100 years old wooden crate underneath glass. They're like, and here we have the finger bone of, John the Baptist that we came into. And it's like, all right, maybe. I don't know.
Nah.
I believe them.
Do you?
I believe them, yeah.
They also say
Why would
that
they
they
lie?
have
Look at
like
that
the
picture,
crown
right, yeah.
of thorns.
So like, is
God. And they put
that
a
a
pool up
pool?
there? Is that a pool?
that did look
I
like
don't
a
think
pool.
it's a pool. I didn't see any.
Go,
That looks
right
like
there.
that's a
That's
pool.
a pool. Click
That
bigger
might
on that.
be photoshopped. I can't say there were any pools up there.
Dude,
Yeah, it might be a courtyard.
pull that up.
Pull it up.
Right,
Is the
right click. yeah.
backstory of these monasteries is that like monks used to go up there and then just live their entire life on top of this?
Well, I
small
think,
little mountain?
like as the Ottomans were taking over Greece, Christianity was, found itself being persecuted. So just way up on top of these mountains in the hills of Greece was a relatively safe place for monks to go
Okay.
do monk stuff in peace and quiet.
Yeah. So that's the same reason they went underground in Turkey into like in
The caves.
Cappadocia.
Right.
You would see these like ancient churches there because
But
they had to hide.
They actually have videos from, they must be from like the early 20th century. Somebody dragged a camera out there and they filmed the monks using, like they would use these pullers and they could drop like a crate, a big basket down hundreds of feet, and then they'd have a crank where a bunch of monks are like turning a wheel to pull all of their whatever food supplies hundreds of feet back up there to the top.
Wow.
And yeah, they could stay up there for long periods if,
They must
was-
have massive forearms doing that.
Yeah.
Like that'd be a
Yeah.
workout.
Yeah. But
That's so
I
cool.
would definitely, if you're driving through Greece, it's kind of in like north central Greece, a couple hours north of Athens. Actually, as I was driving up there, I just saw a sign on the road that was like Thermopylae, next exit.
No shit.
oh, holy
yeah,
shit.
that's awesome.
So I pulled off, and it's, the Leonidas
300,
and
yeah.
the 300.
Yeah.
And they have, a statue of Leonidas, and they have the area where they claim the actual 300 would have made their stand, which it was only 300 Spartans. They had like,
a
1,200,
lot,
2,000 guys from other Greek city-states.
Okay. And
but
the reason that they like the fight was in Thermopylae isn't that like a pass?
It's a
or
narrow
it's-
pass, yeah.
It's near the water.
Well,
or-
in 2500 BC, or no, 500 BC, 2,500 years ago, it was a narrow pass right on the water. Now with just kind of like silt deposits and erosion and sea level, whatever, the actual coastline is probably over a mile out now.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't really look like this, the gates of hell or whatever they called it back
Yeah.
then. But you can see the point where it does, get very steep and, what would have been the old coastline, and it's pretty fucking narrow. So yeah, I just pulled off.
Damn Persians.
I mean, that place is top 10 place on earth. It's got to be.
Well,
like,
I mean-
beautiful. Jesus.
Oh,
Christ.
Meteora?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Meteora if you're in Greece. And, everyone wants to do the islands in Greece, understandably. But the mountains of Greece, interior Greece, it's beautiful. There's a lot of really cool hiking you can do. They've got like some alpine lakes, really beautiful rivers coming out of the mountains.
Taking a car has got to be the smartest way too, because you could stop anytime you want to, check out different views.
Yeah.
Like that's so much, like trains and everything getting around Europe is great.
You're on another person's schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could stop anywhere you want and just check stuff out, spend the day there.
Yeah, and I think if you're trying to do cities, trains make sense. If you're going from, Prague to Munich to Paris, yeah, take a train. But I wanted to see rural Greece and I wanted to see rural France, and a car is just definitely the best way to do that. I was like, yeah,
It's so easy. I've done it twice now. It's the easiest thing on earth.
Yeah,
And cheapest. It's so cheap.
there's an app called iOverlander that people that do like big overland, usually motorcycles, but sometimes like expedition vehicles, that they use to share camping sites all over the world. I mean, people are dropping pins like in the Outback, in the Gobi Desert. But when I would be driving through France or Greece, I would just open this up, see where people had dropped pins, and I was just sleeping in a hammock. Like, I would pull my car down a little dirt road where someone else had dropped a pin, and you could see the report that they'd written, like, quiet pull-out next to a creek, nobody bothered me, no mosquitoes, highly recommend. And I would just pull my car down in there, string my hammock up, sleep
Dude, that's
under the
so
stars. and
What a
rains.
life.
yeah.
That's
What a
so
life.
dope.
It was awesome. I mean, you can't live like that forever. But and then when I got down into the Peloponnese with the car, I went to Archaea Olympia, so like where they used to hold the Olympics in ancient Greece, which they didn't even let the Macedonians participate in that. That was like strictly for what they considered the Greek city-states.
Yes.
And there was, lots of just custom and tradition with it.
Probably had pimento cheese sandwiches like Augusta National.
Yeah.
Unbranded beer.
Well, I didn't, and I should have realized this, maybe just ignorantly. I wanted to go see it, but I was not prepared and blown away by what like a large and extensive site this was. I mean, I knew they would have the big stadium or whatever where they do the sprinting and the chariot races, but it's like the Olympics today where there's just an entire village. I mean, like this was a massive complex that would, get used every 4 years. And they had temples and they had, bathhouses and areas for these athletes to live in and areas for these athletes to live in. It was really, really impressive. And
you had to compete naked.
that's right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And they
So
used
you're
to-
running the 100-meter dash and your dick's flinging around?
Yeah.
Well,
it worked out for Chris Jones.
Yeah, and back in the days of ancient Greece,
It did.
having a small penis was prized.
That's
Oh,
right.
really?
They thought
Yeah.
it was barbaric to be well
a
endowed.
big, big schlong.
I'd be an absolute king there.
Yeah, I would have been fucking Zeus himself.
You
Yeah,
can always tell when there's like Germanic or Celtic prisoners in the Greek and Roman art because they've got big dicks and mustaches.
Mustaches no-go, too?
Mustache was like, oh, you got a mustache? You're a Celt or a German. Yeah. So,
clean shaven.
yeah. But I would recommend that Olympia
Look at that
site.
fucking loser. He's got a hog.
So
Especially,
let's say somebody's
fucking
going on
gross,
a
dude.
going on a trip to Greece. What's 3 things that you experience that they absolutely have to?
Meteora. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you have to go to the Acropolis. Maybe not like the Acropolis is mobbed. It was just closed the other day because of like extreme temperatures. In July, on a Saturday afternoon, the Acropolis might not be the best time. If you can go when the weather's good and it's not mobbed with tourists, it's probably the best view of all the rest of Athens, just being on top of there. And it's, incredibly historically important. Mm-hmm. I'd say in Athens, the archaeological museum is probably at least for me, because everything is just showcased in there and you could spend an entire day in there. So maybe the museum in Athens, Meteora, and then there was a town called Mistras. If you could pull this up, Sam. Mystras. And it's this massive complex just west of where Sparta is. And Sparta is actually not that impressive because, surprise, the Spartans were relatively Spartan. They didn't, build a whole lot, at least not like the Athenians did. And what they did build hasn't been well preserved. But Mistras, which is in the foothills just west of there, is a huge complex of all of these like Byzantine era forts and towns and little churches and villages. And you could spend a couple days walking through the entire Mistras complex. Search like Mistras Citadel. There's a huge that's it at the top there. You can kind of see it. But the views of like the plain of Sparta and just all these little nooks and crannies. I mean, there was maybe a dozen people at this site when I was there.
Man.
And it's the size of like, I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of acres. And I would walk around for 20 and 30 minutes stretches without seeing another person. And you walk into some of these old Byzantine little churches, and there's just giant frescoes on the wall, paintings like 500, 800 years old. There's nobody else in sight. And you can turn that into like a little Sparta trip too. There is a museum in Sparta. So that's in the Peloponnese. I would highly, highly recommend Mistras. But I enjoyed everywhere I went. Yeah. Olympia was sick. Delphi. I went to the Temple of Apollo way up in the mountains as I was driving from Olympia to this Mistras site. And I was up pretty high, and it started flurrying snow up there. And I'm the only single person at this Temple of Apollo, and there's just like snow falling. it was
Dude, that's so sick.
not what I was expecting on my Greece trip. And yeah, when I was in Crete, it was November and I was still just going in the ocean every day. Like the Mediterranean was warmer than Cape Cod in August in November in Crete. So
That's good to know.
Yeah.
But probably a lot of the locals weren't swimming because at that point they're like, it's way too cold for me.
it was mostly British tourists and,
Yeah.
and myself. But
Okay.
hey, I could have stayed in there all day. It was very pleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I swam in Sicily in April and I got out of the water and this Italian guy was like, "Are you insane?
You're gonna catch a
You're
cold.
swimming in this?"
Yeah.
It's like, shut up.
How
pussy.
cold are we talking?
I'm from Massachusetts, guy. It was not that cold. It was like Massachusetts in July.
Dude, even the
Early
North
July.
Sea, I went swimming like off the coast of Amsterdam. That was warmer than any of the water at Martha's Vineyard or Cape Cod. Like, I couldn't believe it. The North Sea is somehow warmer than Cape
Damn.
Cod, but
The Acropolis is damaged because the Ottomans like accidentally hit it with a bomb.
well, no, I think
Or was
it
it
the
on
British who hit it? The
Yeah, I don't
Ottomans were
wanna-
storing somebody was storing gunpowder there. Maybe it was the Ottomans who hit it.
Yeah, why? Because it wasn't damaged that long ago. It was like the
No, it
early-
was like the 1800s. Yeah, somebody decided that, the most sacred, historically important site in Greek history would be a great place to just put all of the gunpowder. And then I believe
Oh
an
yeah,
errant
so it was
shell
the
hit it and
Venetians. So
Yes, yeah.
the Ottomans. So the Venetians were trying to reconquer Athens, but the Ottomans stored all of their gunpowder in the Parthenon.
Right.
And then the Venetians hit it directly, and the whole thing just
Right.
exploded.
And
They
I guess
did that at King's Landing too with wildfire.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
which was technically like a Greek thing, right? The
Yeah.
Byzantines
It was
had
based on that,
Wildfire. Yeah, I guess invented by the Byzantines, but the Byzantines, they started off as like the Roman Empire, but then
They spoke
eventually
Greek.
they stopped speaking Latin. Yeah, they only spoke
they
Greek. They were pretty much
Catholic
Greek.
or,
yeah.
Greek Orthodox, whatever. Yeah, they were Greeks.
Yeah. And then when you went to the islands, did you just bring your car on the ferry or no?
Well, it was a rental car, so I returned the rental car in Athens and then took a ferry to Crete. And no, I just got around. I did a lot of hitchhiking on Crete. A lot of hitchhiking with old Greek men who didn't speak much English.
Okay.
But I heard some really interesting stories from not firsthand, but older local guys on Crete whose dads and grandpas could remember the German occupation of Crete and the guerrilla warfare that took place on Crete was pretty brutal, and especially the Nazi repression of the resistance movements. And the British, this would have been early in the war, like, I don't know, 41, 42. Like British SAS, some of their first missions, which did not go that successfully, and they learned a lot of really hard lessons from, was like trying to retake little chunks of the Cretan coastline or like trying to land men at Crete. And most of those SAS guys either, got captured or died. But yeah, there was some really interesting World War II history there as well.
Andy Milanakis really vouches for Crete. I think that's like where his maybe family is originally from. And so he goes there for like a month every year and then just does a bunch of live streams around the island and stuff.
I've actually seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just great right out of the ocean seafood. It's big enough that, they produce their own wine on the island and lots of their own grains. So they've got, local pastas and stuff. Like I said, it would take probably more than 4 hours to drive from one side of Crete to the other.
Did you crush a lot of puss?
Not in Crete. I mean, if you,
By puss, I mean octopus.
Oh,
no,
Yes.
I'm always,
I thought you meant vagina.
I'm always
Oh,
more
no,
of
no,
a
no.
squid,
Sam's
a
not a
squid
puss
over
crusher.
octopus guy.
You don't like octopus?
I mean, I'll fuck with some octopus, but I like squid more than octopus.
Oh, I'm more octopus is my number one. If it's on a menu, I'm getting it every time.
Especially if I'm in Greece. I feel like when I think of Greece, I think of octopus.
More so than
Yeah.
Spain
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
for
yeah.
tapas.
Yeah.
If you want to
What's
hear
the-
about me crushing
what's
puss,
the
you'll have
octopus
to bring me back
capital
on
of
for
the
the
planet?
Budapest episode.
Oh,
But-
hell
Oh,
yeah.
Eastern
that's
European.
where you go for the puss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buddha pussy is what. Pussy.
Buddha puss.
Buddha pussy.
Yeah, no, I think of I don't know.
Buddhism.
Octopus comes to mind when I think of Greek food, but like how was the food in general? I will say one type of food I love to hate on is those stuffed grape leaves. I think they're.
I don't
I
really
love
like
those.
Yeah,
Those
I
are
like those.
not-
I love those.
The ones that are filled with dates.
Which that's
They're
just
usually
kind of
filled with like rice, like
Eastern
a
Mediterranean
flavored rice.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
if you bring
Yeah,
up
yeah, I
stuffed
know
grape
exactly
leaves,
what
my
you're
like
talking
parents used to make those every once in a while.
But I
Shay
feel
ranked them
like-
as like one of his top 5 appetizers. I think they are a trash appetizer.
Turkey's more of the
anywhere
olive
claim
and-
that in
It's like those
particular?
chaps.
I thought that was just like
leaves.
Mediterranean.
Yeah,
as
I
a
was gonna
whole.
say I've had those in Greece, Turkey,
Istanbul.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're
I
They
don't
do
think-
that with dates too, though.
Okay, yeah,
good.
I mean, it's not it's like will gladly eat one. I'm not going to throw it up, but I think in terms of appetizers, you can do a lot better.
And it just does not look appetizing
No,
in that picture.
but what was your favorite food that you ate there? I mean,
in Greece.
do people actually eat a bunch of heroes?
Yeah, I mean, I was crushing heroes. Trying to think what my favorite meal I had. I mean, it sounds. I had a very good pizza in Greece one night. Like one of the better ones in my life. I'm not. I mean, I enjoy eating. I love food, but I'm not the biggest like foodie traveler like you are. I don't go out of my way to
That's kind of how I
try.
am.
Like
You
I'll
don't
try
go
local
out of your-
stuff,
I'm-
but weird stuff. I'm not.
I'm going out of my way. I'm going.
get
The
food.
food's like the number one kind of attraction for me at most places.
Yeah, I bet
Abroad.
that seafood was unbelievable. Probably had the best feta.
Oh yeah, yeah. But like when we were in India, I was kind of relieved when you were like, "We're not going to do any street food. We can't risk catching the deli belly," and we ended up trying Indian Taco Bell, Sbarro, KFC, McDonald's.
I like how you
Domino's.
you don't
Pizza Hut.
want stomach issues, so you go to
Yeah,
Indian
it-
Taco Bell.
Dude, yes.
Yo, Indian
Got
Taco Bell
a
passed
butter
the
chicken
test.
chalupa.
Yeah. they're
What?
A butter chicken chalupa, yeah.
That sounds fire.
They burnt the fuck out
Wait,
of it.
so-
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Have you dropped any of that India fast food content yet?
No, only in the first vlog we did a quick McDonald's and KFC review. I haven't released the Sbarro review, the Pizza Hut review. The Taco Bell review I'll put in the Kabaddi video.
The Maharaja Mac, right? Was that McDonald's?
Yes, their like version of a veggie burger because they don't eat cows.
Right.
The crazy thing is they don't eat cows, but you can eat buffalo.
And then
So that's pretty much the same thing.
somewhere, didn't we have a Momo stuffed crust pizza?
That was Pizza Hut. Yeah. So momos are like Nepalese dumplings, and so embedded in the crust of the pizza were
Kind of
dumplings.
awesome. I love
Yeah, that
dumplings.
was pretty cool.
I'm out on that one.
I don't think we
Yeah.
filmed any of this, but when we were in Mumbai that night, there was a Nepalese restaurant that was having like their opening night.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they just saw like 2 white guys, but they called Donnie and I over and were like, sit down, free dinner, took pictures of us.
Yeah.
That's
that
probably
was-
good for their Yelp, though. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a couple white dudes eating here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Solid photos.
That was a good meal, though.
It was.
Yeah.
They would. Something that always comes to mind is when we were walking by the most expensive home on the planet in Mumbai, and I was filming it on my phone, and one of the security guards came out and was like, "Hand me your phone. You got to delete all those videos." And you were just like, "We don't have to do that. We know our rights." And I was like, "Dude, we do not know our rights in India."
I can't remember if I hit him with the "we know our rights," but I think I was saying like, "Dude,
You ever
we're
heard of the
taking
First
a video
Amendment,
on a
bud?"
public street. Like, how
Yeah.
can there be anything illegal about this?"
Yeah, we
Which,
were on
is what
a
I tried to
public
tell
street.
Hezbollah some weeks later too. And
Yeah.
didn't fly with them either. So
You pull out your pocket constitution and show them freedom of the press exists.
yeah,
Yeah, but then you taught me that. So he did like watch me delete all the videos, but then you're like, "Oh, you can just go into recently deleted on your phone," and I got them all back. So I
No.
got to release that
unfortunately,
footage too.
Hezbollah knew about the recently deleted, so I didn't get any of that stuff back.
Yeah, if you're gonna get captured by somebody in his vault, they got to be in their 50s. I feel
Uncle
like.
Chaps,
So,
did
yeah.
you see here? Did he tell you when he was getting interrogated by Hezbollah? They were about to waterboard him and everything. And,
They were about the water.
and they're
board, but-
scanning through his phone, and they're like, "Who or what is that?" And it was just a picture of me.
Yeah, we do know that. Yeah,
Looking
I
great.
think that it would be
Looking
more
great.
shocking if they'd be like, "Oh, this guy tortures people too." If it was Nicky Smokes' forehead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he got it bad too.
Thank God they weren't Cubs
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah, could have been really
Yeah, it
bad.
was bad. Yeah, yeah.
Can we do a quick deep dive into Greek sexuality, ancient Greek sexuality? Because
Fucking love this.
Let's do it.
So how it worked is that it's not so having gay sex, like having sex with a man, especially if it was a younger man. So all right, how am I going to put this? Fucking another man was seen as socially acceptable. Being fucked by another man was not seen as socially acceptable.
No bottoms allowed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think
yes.
that's still how it is in, like Afghanistan or some of these places where older male, younger.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of
exist,
young boys would have like a male mentor, and that male mentor would have sex with you from time to time, but he would also just like teach you a trade or teach you how to become a man, and you kind of took the submissive role. And then once you kind of like fully hit puberty, then it was like, okay, like
Your turn.
The original,
Yeah,
that was the original platonic relation.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah. And there was like a famous military organization, maybe in
The Sacred Band of Thebes.
the Sacred Band of Thebes, and it was comprised of 20 male couples who were like in love with each other, because it was
Right.
like, you will fight so much harder on the battlefield
And
if
I
you're
think
like
with
fighting
your-
with the
yeah.
man you
Right.
love.
Achilles and Patroclus.
And so, yes, right.
I guess. Yeah.
Alexander the Great's father, Philip II of Macedon,
Yes.
he was raised by the Thebans. His father had kind of had to like
Yeah.
ransom him off or whatever. He was a war captive. He grew up in Thebes amongst, the sacred band or whatever. And then later, when he became king of Macedon, built up the Macedonian army, he destroyed Thebes. And I'm pretty sure like the end of the sacred band of Thebes is when Alexander
Yeah.
the Great's father destroys them. But then interestingly enough, and this is a murder that we'll never get to the bottom to, and there's theories have abounded on this for 2,000 plus years. But there are people who think that, he was murdered, Philip II. That's how Alexander the Great becomes king of Macedon at 17 or 18 years old, whatever. But people think that he was murdered because he had kind of spurned his younger boy lover for an even younger, cuter boy. And it
Yes.
was this slightly older, now rejected boy who came and killed him.
Yeah. I think that's the most likely theory.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
a lot of people think Alexander's mother might have been involved.
Angelina Jolie, that
Exactly.
that bitch.
Yeah. But now I also see, like, the last year or so, I've seen a couple different Twitter threads, with thousands of likes, where it's a guy basically being like, the Greeks weren't actually gay at all, and, we have 10,000 different Greek vases, and only, like, 3 of them depict any sort of homosexual activity, and, like, if you had 1,000 DVDs from the early 21st century, like, yeah, sure, one of them's going to be Brokeback Mountain, but that doesn't mean like every guy was doing. I don't know. I've
Yeah.
heard arguments recently that maybe it's kind of been overstated by like postmodern
Yeah.
researchers who want to see
But the thing is,
their own beliefs reflected in ancient. I don't know though. I'm
even
not
the Romans, which weren't that much longer after, they would make
Right.
fun of the Greece, and like they called gay sex Greek love.
really. I didn't know that.
I think
Okay.
that's what the Romans used to call it.
Interesting. Yeah, because I guess you do associate that more with Greece and not
Not
really
with Rome, no.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rome was maybe a little more open than like the Middle Ages, but
Yeah.
probably not on the Greeks level.
Julius Caesar used to just like bang every other senator's wife.
Right. Yeah.
Like
and-
even before he came to power, he was just known as like a womanizer.
Right. And they like,
Nice.
like abortion existed in the Greek and Roman worlds. Like they were like, yeah, sure, have an abortion. Like
How would they do it? I mean,
there was actually a plant. They think there was this plant, and I'm blanking out on the name of it right now.
I thought you were going to say clothes hanger.
They
That's
were
what I
doing
was thinking.
so many abortions. They were using this plant so frequently, also just like as birth control, not necessarily to terminate a pregnancy, but just to prevent them, that I think they just grew this plant out of existence. Like they just over harvested it to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. See if you can look that up. Silcum, I believe it's called. SIL.
I think that
Search
actually-
like Roman birth control plant.
Did that get banned by Republicans?
Probably, yeah.
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 But you can still order it in the mail from a blue state.
oh yeah, you were spot on.
Whoa.
Yeah, so identity and extinction, what does that say?
Is an unidentified plant that was used in classical antiquity as a seasoning, perfume, aphrodisiac, and medicine. It was an essential item of trade from the North African city of Cyrene and it was so critical that the serene economy and the most of their coins bore the image of the plant.
Yeah.
Related to the fennel. Wow.
Fennel's delicious. One of my
It
favorite
is.
foods.
Very
it's a
underrated.
Great veggie.
It's great for like bloat too, right?
Is it?
Well, they make fennel tea, which I think is supposed to be good for like stomach
Digestion,
issues.
yeah.
Digestion. All right, so that's Crete. I got to get to Crete. I got to get to Greece. Just the ocean there just looks like perfect.
It's AI.
I think the Mediterranean Sea in the summer might be the perfect body of water. I mean, you could talk about Greek history forever, but we're gonna wrap up and then we're gonna try a new segment after this.
All right.
Drop a Pin is brought to you by Chubbies. Summer's winding down, but there's still time to let the dogs out, and by dogs, we mean your legs. Before your pups get stuck in jeans and sweats this fall, like Chaps over here, he's jumping the gun. But over here, I still got the shorts on because you got to take advantage. You got to be able to set them free with their Line Swim collection from Chubbies. These are the normal shorts, which I rock a bunch, but they just came out with a bunch of sweet bathing suits. And I've got a couple at home. They're great. Growing up when I was younger, I was kind of more of a longer shorts guy. And looking back at those photos, not fashionable at all. But I made the switch to Chubbies a few years ago. The ladies love it. And I love it too. I just feel better. I feel more free. And you get a nice little tan on your thighs. You don't get your legs don't end up all white and pasty. So whether you're poolside, lakeside, or oceanside on that long-awaited vacation, these trunks are ready to travel. Life's too short for uncomfortable swim trunks, so these babies are set up for all-day comfort with quick, dry stretch fabric and built-in liner that actually does its job. No more chafing, no more soggy butt, and no more mesh disasters.
Soggy butt's the worst.
Soggy butt, yes, it is, and especially like that like mesh that a lot of those bathing suits have. Once you
end up with the mesh lines all over your junk.
Yeah, and if you've got like if you're just in salt water, then that like mesh and salt water will just like oof. You'll just it kind of just straight up gives you a rash. And
what's the area that's on the side of your balls and penis? What's that area in the crease of your leg? Does that have a name like gooch? Like
does that have a
name? That's not the gooch, but is there a name?
It's definitely not the taint, but those like your crotch crevices, your crotch crevices, those will get so itchy sometimes with that mesh and everything like that. But you don't have to worry about that with Chubbies. And for a limited time, Chubbies is giving our listeners $10 off your order with our code DROP at chubbyshorts.com. That's code DROP at chubbyshorts.com. So support our show and let them know we sent you. Give summer one last hurrah and keep the good vibes going with Chubbies.
That was the most Massachusetts you sounded on this show, Summer.
Because I thought it said give Summer one last hummer, but no, it was one last hurrah. And the Summer Hummer was the name of my friend's old boat.
Oh, okay, that's just as good as Large March the Party Barge for a pontoon boat.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Today's show is also brought to you by our good friends at Hey Dudes. I'm wearing some right now. In fact, I've been basically exclusively wearing Hey Dudes around. They're super comfortable. I like this one that is the Hey 2.0. It is super comfortable, lightweight, slip it on real fast. And they have cushion insoles that feel like little pillows under your feet. So the other night I went to Sierra Farrell's concert and I was like, I'm just going to throw on some Reebok classes. And I tossed them in the trash whenever I got home. My feet went up, my legs legitimately went to sleep. It was one of those concerts where you can't move because you're packed in there.
Yep.
And I was standing there and I was like stomping my feet and I was like, there's going to be somebody that has me on Instagram just stomping my feet and looking like a middle-aged white guy dancing like I'm stomping my feet just to try to get him, wake them up. Yeah, so I legit, that's no lie. When I came home, I threw those bitches into the trash. You're going to want to do that too because Hey Dudes are designed to go wherever you go, from an airport security line to a night out. Pick up a pair at heydude.com. There's all kinds. My favorite ones that I have are the Ninja Turtle variety that have little pizzas on the back heel.
Love those.
Yeah, they make me look good. They make my wife want to give me a jump. You're going to want to give me a jump too because I'm wearing Hey Dudes. Get a jump yourself by going to heydudes.com.
Yes, they'll keep the circulation going all day.
Today's show is also brought to you by Barstool Golf Time Supreme. This golf season, are you looking for an easier way to get to the course? We've got you covered because the Barstool Golf Time app makes it easy for golfers to find the best tee times at the best prices. In fact, me and White Sox Dave did it yesterday. We're going to go play a little course called Cog Hill this weekend. It's great. We got a super cheap round. I was like, that place is pretty expensive. He was like, dude, there's like 3 spots from 8:15 or 8:10 to 8:38 that we could get in, and it's going to be a lot cheaper. And it was like 30-40% cheaper than the other golf apps.
Let's go. And Cog Hill is probably one of the premier courses in the Chicagoland area.
Yep. So stop searching all over Google for your next tee time or going through the hassle of calling courses. You can search multiple courses in your area from one app and get your tee time set within seconds. With every action you take in the app, you earn rewards, which can be redeemed for merch in the Barstool store. We just launched the reward experience in the app. There's more items from the Barstool store to choose from, and you now have the flexibility with your points. You can use rewards as credit to any item in the collection, or you can bundle and use points on multiple items. Come golf with us. Download the Barstool Golf Time app today.
Dude, I've yet to play outside golf this season, and I'm very disappointed in myself, but I'm going to rev up the Barstool Golf Time app this weekend and get some dates on the schedule.
All right, you got to, and you can wear your golf dad stuff too.
Sure will.
All right, let's hop back into the pod. All right, so we're doing a news segment. It's part of Getting Cultured, but it's gonna be high history. I'm very excited. So we can't show you. We couldn't actually partake on camera because it's on YouTube, but we went outside, and trust, we all did plenty. Donnie is going to be the high school teacher today. We're excited about that. We still have Sam is in the house from our episode that we just did on Greece, and we also still have White Sox Dave, and my new puppy, Lady May, is here too. So Donnie, take it away.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yes, I'm very high, and I don't think that necessarily makes me a good storyteller, but we shall see.
And I don't know if you need to say thanks for having me because this is your show.
Yeah.
Oh,
He didn't even realize he did that.
Right now. Okay, I'm absolutely blown faced. So today we'll be talking about what some people call like the original World War, at least for Western civilization, and maybe like a 500 BC. We're not going to do a lot of dates. Just know this was right like as the Roman Empire was starting to gain power, and there was another empire that a lot of people don't talk about these days, and that was the Carthaginian Empire, also known as the Punic Empire. Yeah, they were the Punics. And they were originally Phoenicians, which are from Lebanon. Sam knows all about that. But at some point, they kind of had to flee. And so they set up all these. They were the original seafarers, the best boat guys in the world. There's even rumors that one of them circumnavigated Africa back in like
Hanno the Navigator,
2000 BC, something crazy like that. So they set up colonies. Like they kind of left Lebanon. They set up colonies all over the Mediterranean, even some colonies like outside into the Atlantic on the African coast. And their most successful colony was Carthage, which is now in Tunis, which is the capital of Tunisia. And it was like the largest, I think the largest city in the Mediterranean. And they became very successful just by setting up these trading empires all over. So while they're doing this, Rome is starting to gain power. Like that's a long story in itself about how but they started off just around Rome. They started to get more and more territory, and they started to move south. Now the Punics had historically controlled Sicily. And there was like a couple Greek colonies, but it was mainly like their island, and also Sardinia was their island too. And they wouldn't like straight up conquer a place. They just wanted these little outposts so they could trade. That's how they weren't like worried about like colonizing the people. They were just like, we need to be able to set up shop and do business. But as Rome got bigger, they started to butt heads. There was the first Punic War. So that was like the first World War. We're not really going to talk too much about that, but Carthage loses. there's some insane naval battles, some of the largest naval battles of all time. Think like 2,000 ships versus another 2,000 ships. And how they would fight is they would just ram the other ships, and then that allowed them to just run on the deck and kill everybody there. So they all have these big rams, and that they're like playing bumper boats, but just trying to fucking ram into your boat.
That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, it's
like
insane.
90% of the guys on those boats could not swim. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if you hit the water, it was just
Yep.
over.
So Carthage and the Punics, they lose the war, and it's kind of like when Germany lost World War I. They were so pissed, and they're like, we're going to fuck you over. So they made all these crazy rules that Carthage had to pay Rome tons of money every year, completely bankrupted them. And this dude, Hamilcar, he was one of their generals in that war. And then afterwards...
Baller name.
Hamilcar
that
is
is
a
a-
sick name. And after the war, they were like, okay, like you guys need to leave Sicily. Sicily is now ours. And then Sardinia wasn't really part of the deal, but still Rome just went and took Sardinia, and they were left crippled. And Hamilcar, who had like a 7-year-old son, he made his son vow. He was like, someday I might not be around for it, but you need to get revenge on Rome. Said that to his son Hannibal. So the Carthaginians, they're crippled from the first war, but they start to set up some colonies in Spain, because Rome really had zero presence in Spain at the moment. And those colonies become very successful. They find silver mines and a bunch of other valuables in Spain. So slowly but surely, the Carthaginians start to have money again. They aren't completely bankrupt. They're making a lot of money. They've got this strong base in Spain. And they end up conquering most of Spain. And this dude Hannibal is out there. He's out there during all the Spanish campaigns while they're slowly conquering the peninsula. And long story short, as soon as they gained enough power, he was like, it's time to fulfill the oath I made to my dad, that I would make Rome pay for what they did to us. So he raises an army from all over the Mediterranean. There was these dudes called the Numidians that I think were great archers, and they were from one of the areas of North Africa. He recruited a bunch of the Celts or the Gaelics, I don't know, whoever was in Spain at the time, and just a bunch of other people, maybe some Maltese, I don't know. And he also got a bunch of elephants from North Africa, and then they straight up just marched over the Alps. You've seen the Alps.
I have.
Those
are a lot. Those are high peaks to march over.
Yeah, and I think he had 80 elephants, maybe 40 survived.
That's pretty good ratio.
It's good ratio, I'd say.
I mean, that's a ratio I just pulled out of my ass.
I think 37 made it through, so.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, they still aren't exactly sure what route he took. He was doing some crazy chemistry sort of thing. They had to there was some rocks blocking a pass, and they were like, if you pour a bunch of vinegar on the rocks and then you pour water, he made some chemical reaction, then they were able to just chip away at the rocks.
Genius.
I think I've heard, or some people think that they went through the St. Bernard passes, Little St. Bernard Pass and Great St. Bernard Pass, which is where the dogs originate, or much later on, obviously.
I wonder if they
But if
wore
you can
little
imagine,
barrels of whiskey. Yeah.
the dogs with the little wooden kegs on their neck. Those are out there to find people in avalanches. So that's
You could put a big keg on an elephant.
Oh yeah.
Like
An actual keg.
So he makes it through. It was not easy by any means. I'm sure a lot of people just wanted to turn back. Probably a good amount of people froze to death. But he makes it through. First battle, first encounter with the Romans, wins it. Next battle, wins it. Starts just winning every battle against the Romans. And finally, the Romans are like, all right, this is becoming a problem. Let's throw everything we have at him. So they amassed an army, I think, of 80,000 people. And as the Carthaginians are going through Rome, they're finding some people that are willing to turn on Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when they're in northern Italy, a lot of the people there are like, oh, well, fuck this. We recently got conquered by Rome. Fuck those guys. We'll join yours. So he amassed an army of maybe 50,000, but Rome sends 80,000 people at him, maybe more. And he invents this genius military technique that is still, it's been copied by Napoleon, probably Julius Caesar. I don't know, even up to like
The Mongols definitely used it.
the Mongols. Yeah, World War II. It was kind of so he lined up his troops, and he had all of the best troops on the flanks and all of his worst troops in the middle. So when they then encountered the Roman army, the middle started to give way, and Rome was like, holy shit, we're winning this battle. We're going deep. But it was like they were only going deep in the middle, and they all kind of rushed into that gap. But then at that point, they're completely
flanked 'em.
surrounded by all of the best troops, all of the dudes on horseback, the Numidian archers. And they massacred this entire army. I think one battle, 80,000 Romans dead. This was like, if you're a Roman citizen, you're like, the world is ending.
Yeah.
80,000 people in one day. I think like still they're like, it was, I think maybe definitely the most lethal battle of ancient history. And at that point, Hannibal is like, okay, like I guess I won. They can't like hold out for much longer. So he sends like someone to the city of Carthage. He's like, all right, just send in reinforcements and we can finish him off. Like now's the time to strike. So he just waits, because the one thing he did not have was siege equipment. So every single time he met a Roman battle in the field, he won.
Right.
But then the Romans were like, okay, we're just not
got
going
walls.
We're not going to
Yeah.
fight you anymore.
Yeah.
And they all just retreated into their cities, and he didn't really have the siege or the time for that.
And
Yeah.
well, despite losing 80,000 men at Cannae,
Yeah.
didn't the Romans raise another like 10 legions in like
That's-
3 months or something? They just put the call out, or was that when
Yes,
they started
yeah,
allowing
that's
people
true.
who weren't technically citizens to serve in? Like, it was an emergency circumstance, and normally you had to be a citizen of certain stature.
Yeah, they started to grant
serve
people,
in
like-
the legions, and they were like, "Hey, man, if you're willing to hold a shield and a sword, now you're a legionnaire." Like,
Yep.
the old rules are gone.
That was the one thing Rome had. They could keep on raising new armies. Meanwhile, Hannibal, he just has the people he crossed the mountains with, and then anyone who's decided to join his side.
And some elephants.
So long story short, Hannibal is in Rome for 15 years. For 15 full years, he's
in
just...
Italy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hannibal is in the Italian peninsula for 15 years, just running train. He never loses a battle, like when he actually faces a Roman army. But like Carthage never sends reinforcements, and the Romans kind of just hide in their cities and just avoid going to battle with him, that he can't win. And eventually the Romans are like, his whole army's here in the Italian peninsula. We're going to send people to Spain. We're going to send people to Carthage. So then Rome just sends an army to Carthage, and he's like, fuck, I got to leave Italy. I got to go back and defend my homeland.
Dude,
and yeah.
Think about how long it would, like, if Rome has won these big sea battles in the first Punic War, and then, like, Hannibal just wins at Cannae or whatever. Like, how long would that take for you to get a message back to Carthage to be like, yo, we just slaughtered 80,000 Romans. Send more men and I can win this. Like,
Months?
we're at the 5-yard line. Let me push it across. How would you even get that fucking message? Like,
I don't know.
imagine if the ship
You probably got to send 5 people with the
you
message,
would have
because
to,
4 of them are
what
going
if
to
the
die.
boat sank? Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure
it's
they
wild.
had ways to do that back then. But like,
And like the war elephants, I think in the first couple battles against the Italians, they helped a bunch, because the Italians were like, holy shit, what the fuck is that? But then they ended up being more of a hindrance, because then like if you spook an elephant, and it's pretty easy to
Right.
spook an elephant when you're in the middle of a battle, it just turns around and charges on its own people. And so that's what they just would like, fire some flaming shit near the elephant. It would turn around and just run over half the army.
Makes sense. I would too.
So,
but the main,
Yeah, I
gotta
wanna-
feed them,
If you're an
too.
elephant, you're like, dude, I have nothing to do with this beef. Like,
Yeah.
get me the fuck out of this.
This
war.
is not India, bro.
the main advantage of having the elephants was that, like, if the other side, Hannibal has elephants, the Romans have horses. When the horses can just hear the elephants approaching or smell the elephants approaching, the other side's horses do the same thing. They lose their fucking mind. It's
yep.
really hard to keep your cavalry wing in order when they know there's a bunch of elephants on the
Yeah,
other side.
The horses
Yeah.
are like,
Yeah.
we
Dude,
thought we
horses-
shit a lot.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers be shitting over there.
Exactly.
Horses and elephants historically do not get along.
No.
I think they're
sad.
arch enemies.
Yeah. Maybe we can have like a peace summit.
Yeah, in Istanbul.
Not going to go well. They're both going to get really skittish and probably run over some people. So Hannibal, he makes it back, tries to defend Carthage. He does not. They lose that war too. And then eventually they were like, Rome's like, let's just completely conquer it. And so they take over Carthage. They go and conquer all of their colonies, and they just turn it into a Roman province. And that's the end of the Carthaginian Empire. But if they had won, which they did have a chance to win after Cannae, if Carthage had actually just sent him the help he needed, like, then instead of Rome going on to dominate Western civilization as we know it, like maybe we would be more kind of like derived from the Carthage way of life and the Punic Empire.
Well, also, like, you know, Rome eventually falls because the Germanic tribes are just sweeping down.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine how much harder it would be for those Germanic tribes if they had to cross the Mediterranean. If Carthage was Rome, like, maybe it just lasts another 2. Maybe we're still living in the Punic Empire.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And maybe like the peace through strength thing, like they would see all those elephants and be like, we don't want to go in there.
Yeah.
Let's find some land that doesn't have elephants.
And then, like, historically, I think some of the best preserved Roman ruins and Carthage ruins, like, are in North Africa. Because after, like, Rome conquered North Africa and all of Carthage, it was, like, a big, successful part of their empire. And I think if you go to Tunisia today, incredible Roman ruins. You can still actually see the harbor of Carthage. They had this.
Just going to say.
Yeah, can you bring up a photo of Carthage harbor?
Well, bring up a
then
photo.
And now.
Yeah, well, there's like designs of what they think based on, what ancient writers described it as. The way they think it probably looked at that time is crazy.
So like boom.
The boathouses of Carthage.
So on the left is how it looked during that time, and they would have all the warships in that circle.
Those pictures were not just there, but like the pictures of Istanbul too, from like the 1200s, 1300s, something like that. How ornate their buildings were and how different it looked back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, same thing with Chicago now. Yeah. Like Chicago back in the day versus now, crazy difference.
Dave and I were
even go
about how
20 years ago.
All the water fountains in Rome, too.
Yeah, you just dude, 2,000-year-old fucking pipes that you drink the cleanest water on earth out of, littered across the city. It's awesome.
So I think like the boats would dock. In the inner
in the
part
circle.
Of that loop there.
Yep, that's where they would keep all the warships. I should quickly wrap up what happened to Hannibal afterwards. So obviously, I told you what happened to Carthage. Hannibal kind of went on the run, and he was public enemy number one as Rome is slowly taking over the Mediterranean. For a while, he lived with one of the Greek empires at the time that was in Turkey. That was like one of the empires left over by Alexander the Great. He lived with them for a while, but Rome, like as they then conquered Greece, they were like, we hear someone here is hiding Hannibal. They eventually tracked him down, and like Hannibal, I think, knew he was surrounded, and like the king was going to hand him over to the Romans, and I think he decided to poison himself instead of.
He pulled a Hitler, huh?
Yeah, instead of being
Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never want to utter that phrase. That's not one you want to pull. Yeah, never.
Pulled every Japanese general in World War II.
Yeah.
The other thing I was just going to add, I don't know if you had anything else on them. So that move you were talking about, I think it's known like as
the double pincer?
Double envelopment, right?
The double envelopment, yes.
Which is like a pincer.
Come on, chaps. You're here to help us with our war formations.
So if people have seen, I know that like the Battle of the Bastards episode of Game of Thrones, where Ramsay Bolton's army surrounds
this pull the sword gif.
Apparently, like the designers of that scene, like they base that off a lot of what the reports of Cannae are supposed to look like, just kind of getting encircled like that. And like the ancient reports that we have of how that went down once they had completed the double envelopment and they had the bulk of that 80,000 army, caught, fully surrounded, 360 degrees, like one, it took hours and hours reportedly for them to actually dispatch of every Roman guy stuck in that circle. And a lot of them weren't people, like a lot of the deaths weren't coming from Hannibal's soldiers stabbing these guys, shooting them with arrows, whatever. It was just as that circle got more constricted, the getting literally crushed to death, getting trampled on. I mean, I think that Battle of the Bastards scene in Game of Thrones would have been kind of accurate to what it was like as it just got tighter and tighter. like, nobody wants to be on the end of that spear, so everyone is stepping backwards, and the guys in the middle are just getting crushed.
Yeah. And
not to end both episodes on a bad
No, but yeah, because I think after the battle, then a lot of like the tribes in Italy that were with the Romans were like, wait, we got to side with this Hannibal guy now. So it did recruit a lot of people to his cause, but in the end, it still
Well,
couldn't
I've
help.
heard that
He got
his
to the
campaign,
1 yard line.
Yes, there were Italians that joined him, but I've also heard some people say that was kind of like one of the earlier moments of Italian peninsula patriotism,
Italian
because everyone
pride.
was like, hey, we might not be Roman, we might be Tuscans or Umbrians, but
The original
this Hannibal
Guidos.
guy,
Yeah.
this Hannibal guy's not from here, and he's got elephants, and he's invading.
He's got
like,
fucking elephants, dude. Yeah.
so
Fucking
One of my favorite war quotes is about getting surrounded. Chesty Puller, I've tattooed actually on my arm. Whenever in the Korean War, they were completely surrounded, and his quote is, "They have us surrounded, which simplifies the problem." And so then they fought their way out from that double envelopment and won the battle.
but where was that?
And I think it was Kaesong.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very
Where's Kaesong?
South Korea.
Cool. That makes sense.
Dave was just quoting the great old Band of Brothers line.
That's
What was it?
General, or that was Dick Winters.
I think it was Winters.
Yeah, they
Good
just
old Dick
dropped
Winters.
over Normandy. They were all, they didn't hit their drop zone at all. Some were 30, 40 miles off. And it was Winters, who was gunless. He lost all his shit. And then it was like some mail clerk or
the
something.
private that found him, right?
Right, there was a
Yeah.
private. And he's like, we're surrounded by Germans. He's like, we're paratroopers. We're supposed to be surrounded.
True.
Yeah.
Great line. Very good line.
Yeah. I think another reason why the Roman armies were so bad against Hannibal for a while, apparently in Rome, if you were like, they had two heads of state, like the two
Right.
main guys, and they changed every 2 years. And so
Yeah.
every 2 years, Rome would just have two new people in charge of the army, two people that didn't really even agree with each other.
The consul. Right?
And they were just like wealthy elites from Rome. Like a lot of them didn't know how to like wage warfare.
And like dictator was an actual political role, or was it dictator or tyrant? I think it was dictator, right?
Dictator, yeah.
Where the Roman Senate, in times of, like after the Battle of Cannae, when it's just complete chaos, we're on the brink, they could declare a dictator.
Yep. Like a
who
martial law
had
kinda.
expanded powers. It could last
Yeah.
more than that 2 years. It was not shared between
Yeah.
two people, and it was like an official role. Like,
Yes.
we're elevating a guy to dictator at the moment. Like,
Wow.
And I can't
Well-
believe that slipped my mind. It just popped back in of where it was. Not Kaesong. It was Chosen. The Chosen Warriors.
Ah,
yeah.
right. Dude, the Chinese have been making some crazy, like, big scale action movies about the Korean War the last few years, which my grandpa fought there. I'm not sure if I should be going and watch these movies, but it's like, the Saving Private Ryan of the Chinese film industry has been these
That's
movies
high
about,
praise.
like,
The Chosen
I'm just talking
Reservoir is
about, like,
fucking crazy.
the scale, the amount of money they put into these films.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
they've been doing
the
that
amount
for a
of
while.
extras
It
that
hasn't
are
like
involved,
helped.
but they're all about the stuff they did in the Korean War, because I don't think they can really brag about much that happened in the
No.
40s period. That was all the nationalists, right?
That's why they invented a movie called Great Wall, where Matt Damon comes and helps the Chinese fight monsters trying to
Right.
climb over the Great
That's
Wall.
right. Did you ever
It's
see
like, I
any
think
of,
if they actually made a story about the Great Wall, they'd be like, well, it took forever to build. It didn't really help much. We got invaded constantly.
I think I told a story like about the Chosen Reservoir when we had Charles Raoult on, but it was so cold there that they didn't have hardly any rations. So the guys' gloves were going like essentially bad, and they would, in order to eat, they would have to shoot their MREs because they didn't have enough lumber, they didn't have enough wood to even start fire. So they would shoot their canned MRE and put the chunk in their mouth to get their nutrients. And whenever they had to have because they only had the flat mittens at the time, they didn't have like finger gloves. So in order to have their fingers on the trigger, they would cut a hole in that one spot, and then that finger would eventually get frostbite. So the reason why you see so many Korean veterans that are missing fingers is because they would have to move on to the next finger, the next finger, the next finger.
Jeez. Dude,
Crazy, right?
I don't think that'd be great in warfare in general, but especially a Cold War. Like
No.
a physically
Fuck
cold
that.
war. Like I'll sometimes be at a ski resort, and like by 3 p.m. I am miserable. Like, but my
But you
toes
can
have
put
lost
stuff on, and if
circulation. I
you're-
can't feel my fingers, and I'm like, I'm wearing fucking gloves.
If you're wearing gear, though, if you're like, it would suck. Chosen Reservoir, there's no getting around it. But I would rather fight in 20-degree weather than some of the days that we spent in Fallujah
sure.
when you're wearing 70 pounds of gear, like moving around in that heat.
Yep.
You can't take anything off, and you're just out there in that
That's
fucking
bad
heat.
swamp ass. Uncle
You're walking
Chaps.
around in 20-degree weather, you're going to warm up.
Yeah, but you read.
Why can't we fight
some of
all
these-
wars in the fall?
Or in San
Nice little
Diego.
brisk
Well, not
chill
San
out there,
Diego.
like-
Let's
You read some of
go
these
somewhere
reports
else.
of like Valley Forge or like Napoleon's army leaving Russia.
Yeah.
And like they didn't have shoes, and there was like 1.5 foot of snow, and guys were like ripping their arm sleeves off to wrap around their feet as they trudged through 1.5 foot of snow. Like, oh my.
Yeah,
No thanks.
crazy. All that crazy. Ancient warfare, no thank you. I like being able to shoot
Yeah, I
long
like-
distance.
Fighting my battles with shoes on.
Yeah.
You fucking psychos.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was another edition
That was
of
super fun.
High History.
That was-
Dude, yeah,
yeah.
obviously
so
I could,
much fun.
I could do this a lot. I could do this
Yep.
all day.
Thank you for letting me sit in the chair over here and nod my head.
You're welcome. And everybody will be back next week. We'll see
Yep.
you then.